Good afternoon, everyone. Here we are again on a October, bit damp, I suppose, day on the Isle of Wight.
Changeable weather.
Well, it is changeable weather. I like that. Yes. Well, hi, Ellis. My name's Mark Reed. This is Ellis Sweetenham. We've kind of jumped in here on
Mark and Ellis
on a podcast day because we've had some very interesting things that have come through our mailbox regarding some legal matters that we wish to discuss with you. So, Ellis, hi.
Hello.
You've picked these two specifically because you wanted to talk to me about them. We have both had a brief, well, I've had a brief read, you've had more of an extensive read into these two matters, but you specifically wanted to talk to me about them. Now, they are going to be split into two podcasts, everyone, okay? So do follow through for sort of part two, shall we call it, on the two news reports that have come through. But part one is regarding a tattoo, is that right?
A few tattoos.
Oh, a few tattoos. Now, what was the reason why you wanted to talk to me about tattoos? Is it because I actually have a tattoo and you thought, oh, Mark obviously likes a tattoo, he'll want to discuss this with me?
It actually wasn't, but
okay.
that is the truth.
Well, there we are. I've just told the world that I do have a tattoo, but don't worry, it's nothing odd. It's just a tattoo from my teenage years that I have on my back. It's nothing awful, nothing rude. I quite enjoy it because I forget it's there, and then suddenly after a year or so, I kind of, catch it in the mirror or someone mentions something in the sun. So there we are. Anyway, enough about me. Multiple tattoos, Ellis.
Multiple tattoos. The reason why I wanted to chat with you, Mark, is because you are, as we have discussed, I think, previously, potentially a little bit older than I am. Therefore, that you may be of a certain age.
Yes,
you're going to remember WWE.
I'm still of that age now, if I'll have you know. I'll take away the offensive point there that I'm older than you. I know you like to remind me of it. But I do actually still now with my children enjoy following a little bit of the wrestling, not fully. I don't necessarily remember all the names of the new people, but yeah, go on. Why? What's happened with someone's tattoos?
Well, it happens to be Randy Orton, who was quite a star on the WWE back in sort of the late 90s, noughties era.
Yeah, I do remember.
It's his tattoos.
Okay.
And the design rights that exist within them.
Okay, so I was literally about to cut you off and say, okay, enough about wrestling. What about the law? What about, the reasons why we'd be discussing this in a legal podcast? And you've just jumped straight into it. Design rights.
Yes.
Okay.
So as it is a design, just because it's designed on skin doesn't mean it's not a design.
Oh, yeah.
It is protectable and is protected, and the person that owns that protection isn't Randy.
Oh, pause there a second.
Pause there.
So let's just go back to basics when it comes to design rights. We're talking about intellectual property, property of the person, and in this instance, we're talking about designs where someone has done a shape or a picture or well, give me more examples. The sort of type of thing before we speak about Randy.
Mm-hmm. So designs can be 2D or 3D.
Okay.
You can have sort of a sculpture or a teapot or a bit of pottery or anything could be a 3D design.
Okay.
And then 2D designs, like you say, is artwork, in this case tattoo designs, any sort of drawings, patterns.
And they afford protection. Why do they afford protection? What is it about it that someone can say, oi, that's mine?
Well, it has to be original.
Okay.
And you also have to make sure it's not sort of a continuation of its function. So taking, for example, a teapot has to have a handle and a spout.
Yeah.
They're essential elements of a teapot to support its function. Uh-huh. So those sorts of things wouldn't be able to be protected.
But you'd protect them because they have some monetary value to them, potentially?
Well, yes, designs like anything else, if it's your own sort of intellectual creation, if it's distinctive, if it's unique, people may buy it.
Okay.
They may
and recognition as well. Someone would want to say that's mine. That's my design or whatever the creation is. But that's something that has come from me, and I need to have the recognition from the world, to know that it is mine. But of course, some people won't be able to say that's mine because they're not going to put their name underneath it, which brings us back to Randy, because Randy won't put a tattoo on his skin and have the creator's name underneath it.
Mm-hmm.
So carry on then. So bring this into it. How has this come about?
So the tattoo artist who designed the tattoos and also sort of performed the actual tattoo onto his body is a lady called Catherine Alexander, based in the US, and she's actually filed a claim against Take-Two Interactive, who is the company who was making the WWE video game.
Right.
So, as part of the video game, as many of these sort of video games include, you have famous people as characters.
Right.
And as part of that, you want to make sure that those characters are as recognisable as possible. So people either pay money to add famous people into their game, or just buy the game because it's got the famous people in.
So again, to pause there, before we come to the video game, this person, sorry, forgive me, what was her name again?
Catherine Alexander.
So Catherine has already put her work out there, albeit on Randy's body.
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, Randy, being a famous person, was understandably out there on the television for all to see.
Yeah.
At that time, when he was doing it, doing all of his wrestling stuff, there wouldn't have been anything on there that said, I had all this done by Catherine at the time. So why is it different from the late 90s to now when a video game is trying to recreate what was already going on there? Is it because she was paid a fee originally?
I suspect so, yeah.
Okay.
And in this case, the WWE got in touch with her and offered to pay her $450 to use the designs of those tattoos within the game, and sort of in its merchandise and things like that, which she refused.
Right.
When she refused that, obviously she's not granted them any permission to use her designs within the game, within merchandise or anything like that.
But she did give permission at the time. We're assuming here that she gave permission at the time, back in the 90s, when all the tattoos were done. Or did she not give permission at the time? She actually just inked Randy's body, and Randy then becomes this very famous person on the wrestling circuit, so of course is then being televised. Has it just taken her years to sort of build up that courage to be able to start banging her drum?
Well, the TV show and the video game are being made by different people.
Yeah.
I think that's important to say there. It isn't clear as to whether she gave permission to the TV show initially. I suspect she probably did. But it wasn't a case of them having to sort of recreate her work, because he just appeared on the TV as he was. Whereas here, they wanted to recreate that work within the video game, within their merchandise, and sort of make direct money from her designs.
And will it be direct money? This is more me just talking to you. I'm just interested now. Will they make money from her designs, or will they make money from the image of him as a whole, which just includes the ink on his body?
Very much depends on what their plans are. I mean, in terms of the game, it all comes down to recognition. Would you recognise Randy Orton without his tattoos? It's a question.
This is quite interesting.
And then also in terms of the merchandise, we don't know what their plans are. I mean, they could have a whole line of non-permanent temporary tattoos lined up with all of his tattoos on that they're going to sell.
Well, that makes absolute sense there. And of course, it brings us back to tattoos themselves and the unique nature of what the creator has put together themselves before they've even inked that person. But if that person, let's just think about this, that there's a person that has had ink I'm saying ink, sorry, tattoos, they've had tattoos for many, many years, let's just say. For example, we were discussing the fact that I've got this wonderful tattoo on my back. So my tattoo on my back is unique. It was created by someone. I can't even remember who it was that did it now. Mm-hmm. So, in terms of the company, I can't even remember the name of the person that did it. But they did. They did this wonderful tattoo on my back. 20 years later, let's just say, mm-hmm. I suddenly am a lawyer on the telly. And for some reason, as part of that, I need to show off my flesh, and it becomes a thing. Now, of course, this is very unlikely, especially for those of you who have seen me. But if it were to happen, could that automatically give someone the right to say, hang on a second, that looks very similar to my tattoo that I had put on Mr. Reed's, back. I now need to be paid, for some of the for something, for the fact that it's now gone out there to the world because he's been on television showing off his back. Is that almost where we're going with this? There's a fine line with tattoos, of course.
There is. I think the key really is the reproduction.
Yeah.
It's the taking that further step to reproduce that design in a completely different environment than what it was created for, and exploit that for money.
Now, that is exactly where I was walking you into. I was hoping you said that, because I was hoping that our listeners were not getting too distracted by the idea of imagining what my tattoo looks like on my back, and were thinking, no, that's a really good point, Mark, because, where does the line come from when it comes to tattoos and people making money out of the tattoos other than what they've made by selling the actual tattoo in its size to the person that's had it on them. And you just answered it. It's because what is it that tattoo in particular has actually generated since it's been put on that person's body? And in this instance, there either is or likely to be financial value to those designs that are on his arms. It's everywhere, isn't it? It's all up his arms and on his back, and there is going to be more likely than not some actual direct financial value from the ink itself.
Yeah.
Agreed?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
agreed.
what do we think's going to happen with this?
Well, there has actually been a decision. So, Take-Two, the company that creates the game, they were claiming that they could use the designs under the fair use rules, which exist in the US and in the UK, but in slightly different formats. So we won't go into the nitty-gritty, but essentially it means that these designs are sort of out in the public domain. They were using them for reference rather than sort of, they say, for commercial gain, and therefore they were covered to use it. The court disagreed and said that the authenticity was an important factor for the game in terms of customers recognising that it's authentic and it's properly licensed.
Yeah.
And that there would have been a difference as to whether Randy Orton's character had or had not been created with his tattoos. And therefore, that clear financial gain, as we discussed just now, is in existence. It's not just a case of for reference. It's sort of that extra layer of customer recognition, potentially pushing them to then make a purchase. And that was deemed beyond the fair use, and therefore they infringed her design rights.
Wow. I'll be honest with you, I'd skimmed through, I hadn't read the decision there because I was hoping that it would be a nice surprise for me as much as it is for our listeners as to what you had to say. I am surprised by it. And the reason why I'm surprised is, of course, with those, those tattoos that are on his arms and everything, and unless the detail that they're able to zoom in and look through the detail of the design specifically, so specifically, mm-hmm. to be able to allow anyone to point to it and say, I want to buy this game, for example, because it's so clearly Randy's tattoos that are on there, that all they'd see is a tattooed man, and he has got some really impressive tattoos, so, well done to the creator of the tattoos, you've done a grand job. but they're tattoos, and it's going to be, let's just say, a video game that is going to be really, really, really well put together, but at the same time, it's still going to be a video game of a wrestler with tattoos, of which there's lots of wrestlers with tattoos. Mm-hmm. What makes him so distinctive? And I'm surprised that they'd found in favour I say so easily. I don't know whether they had spent some time considering it. Are you surprised by it or not?
It's difficult to say without sort of looking very specifically at the
Well, of course, we
designs
do
of
have to
tattoos.
say that, of course, yeah.
But I am not surprised because of the game and its potential of making money. So she was actually awarded damages of $3,750. So not a massive amount of money. But
say that again. How much?
$3,750. So
right.
It's about £3,300.
Okay.
Which is significantly more than the $450 that she was initially offered.
Yeah. Okay. All right. But it's not.
It's not
breaking the bank. It's not tens of thousands or millions. In that regard, would there have been costs awarded in addition to that? I would expect so.
Potentially, yeah.
Not necessarily 100% of the cost, but certainly some of the costs may well have also been awarded there. Was it worthwhile? That's the next question. Of course, we don't know the answer to this, so this is me just asking from your perspective, for your opinion, Ellis. Was this worthwhile, her pushing this?
I would say probably personally, it probably was. It's one of those sort of David and Goliath moments. Little man goes up against a big company.
What about this? And I'm just going to put this to you. Has this actually got nothing to do with money? Not really. Yeah. Has it actually to do with the principle of it? Yeah. The fact that there could be scope here, to open the eyes of an awful lot of tattoo artists and those that may well go a little bit in a naughty way beyond what is reasonable, remembering that someone else has that's their creation, it's their unique work, it's their own intellectual property. Certainly when it comes to tattoos and how they can really be quite sort of readily infringed upon, it might make people stop and think. Do you reckon?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's about the integrity.
Just a little bit.
I think it's about the like you say, the principle rather than the money, and sort of giving it to sort of the big companies that think that potentially they can just take whatever they want to make as much money for them. It's sort of the small man going up against the big corporation. Absolutely.
Well, interesting. I mean, I think it'll be worthwhile as putting a note down to keep an eye on any other tattoo-related matters which result in either court action or threatened court action moving forward over the next, say, 2 to 3 years. Because I think that's got the scope for people to start banging their own drums, with matters that they may have held off because they didn't necessarily think they had any chance of success. So, we'll watch and listen. Thanks for that, Ellis. I'm grateful for you finding that one out and picking that one out just because I had a really cool tattoo on my back.
Not quite, but
no, okay. I know. Anyway, right, okay. Thanks for listening, everyone. We will go to part 2 immediately after this, okay? On the actual heading, it will say part 1 and part 2, so you'll know which one to move on to next. This next one's, again, quite interesting to discuss, so we hope you join us. Thanks, Ellis.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye, everybody.